Broadcasting from Detroit's Cass Corridor, it's the Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. We've had quite a few discussions on the Metro about women in sports, from Wayne State adding a women's varsity soccer team to the increased popularity and viewership for the WNBA. There's a shift happening. We'll chat with a lead researcher on what a new contract means for the WNBA and what it means for women professional sports overall. Then we'll revisit a conversation about a champion in the fashion industry gone too soon. But first, the WNBA and its player association have reached a new collective bargaining agreement, one that many say could reshape the future of women's sports. The momentum was already building. Before the announcement, the league was set to expand to 18 teams by 2030, with new franchises launching in Toronto and Portland this year, followed by Cleveland in 2028, and Detroit and Philadelphia in 2030. Of course, player salaries are going up, but this 7-year deal goes far beyond pay. The WNBA isn't just adding teams, it's adding games. The regular season could grow from 44 to as many as 50 games by 2027 and 52 games by 2029. And just as important, the agreement addresses what players call cadence, or the pace of the schedule. It'll add in new safeguards aimed at reducing long road stretches and improving travel demands. So, what made this deal so critical for both players and the league? And what could it mean for the future of women's professional sports? We're opening the phone lines as well and asking you, who are your favorite women athletes or teams of all times? And what does it mean to see an increase in viewership for women's professional sports? The number, 313-577-1019, 313-577-1019. Joining us now is Risa Assard, Director of Research and Insights at Parity. Risa, welcome back to the Metro.
Thanks so much. I'm so happy to be here again.
I'm excited to have you here as well. Let's dive into things. The WNBA and its players recently ratified a new collective bargaining agreement through 2032. Could you briefly explain what collective bargaining is and why it's important in professional sports?
Absolutely. So collective bargaining goes by CBA, a collective bargaining agreement, and they're really common in professional sports. They're actually quite common in other industries too, where labor is unionized. In this case, we're talking about the Players Union, or the WNBPA, the Women's National Basketball Players Association. And in all cases, including this one, a CBA states the terms of employment that apply to all of an organization's employees of a certain class. So that's all players, or in other industries, all professors or all pipe fitters. But a CBA is basically the rule book for how a league operates from a labor perspective. It's negotiated between the league and the players' union, which is what we saw for the last 17 months in this case. And it sets the terms for everything from salaries to benefits, working conditions, travel, scheduling, and more, so much that you just actually went over. It's super important because on both sides, it creates the structure and protection. It kind of says this is a fair exchange. Players are guaranteed baseline standards, and owners get cost certainty and a framework from which to operate their businesses. So it sets those rules out in writing and governs how the next many years are going to go for the league. And in sports, CBAs are especially critical because careers are short and physically demanding. The average WNBA player's career is 2 to 3 years. So this is the document that defines those working standards, and it ensures that these athletes are treated like the elite professionals that they are. And I want to be really clear here, right? WNBA players are the best women's basketball players on the planet. And this CBA rewards them for being so excellent.
Risa, this deal is being called historic and transformative for women's sports as a whole. What makes it so unique?
Yeah, I love this because so this is actually the 6th CBA in WNBA history. So going back just briefly, right, the WNBA is about to tip off its 30th season, which is the longest tenured women's team sport league here in the U.S. The WNBPA was the first labor union comprised of women pro athletes, and the 1999 CBA between the league and the Players Association was a first for women's pro sports. So all these years later, right, what we're seeing is something transformational, but I would actually say it's even more than transformational because the 2020 CBA was called transformational, and it introduced things like maternity benefits, better travel, and meaningful salary increases. what we see now is basically stratospheric compared to that. Harvard economist and Nobel Prize winner Dr. Claudia Golden actually advised the WNBPA, and she said that she believes that this is the biggest pay increase in U.S. league history, and it might also be the biggest increase any union anywhere has ever negotiated, in sport or out. So that just puts it in perspective what's happening here. In terms of the nuts and bolts, like what does that actually mean? Players will now receive about 20% of the league's gross revenue, which is a significant increase from the previous 7 to 9% share that players received. The salary cap jumps from $1.5 million to $7 million in this first year. Average salaries are projected to jump from about $270,000 to $583,000 in this first year. All these numbers are slated to grow each year over the course of the deal, right? So these are where it starts. And the WNBA will actually... Yeah.
No, I was going to say, go right ahead and finish. I definitely want to stick to revenue sharing once you finish your statement.
Awesome. So like the WNBA will actually finally have its first $1 million athlete contract, which is something the NBA has had since the 1979 and 1980 season. But look where they are now, right? So that's kind of the landscape that the WNBA is finally entering. And it's not just about the star players. It actually meaningfully raises the floor for the entire league, especially middle-tier veterans and rookies. The revenue sharing, which we'll come back to, is huge. The lump sum payment that recognizes WNBA veterans like those early Detroit Shock players, yes, right, for the roles that they played in building this league, they're going to get money from this too. And it also sets up future players with for their future with 401k contributions and on and on and on. So just like transformational, I actually think almost doesn't even cover what we've just seen happen.
And that was the thing that I was tackling while reading through the contract was just so many things were added. So much will help protect the players, but also help with viewership and the fan experience as well. Once again, we're going to get to that. But I want to stick with revenue sharing for a moment because it was a major sticking point. How big of a win is it that the players are now tied directly to league growth?
I don't even think we can say how big it is. I mean, it's a paradigm shift, both financially, what it unlocks for the players in terms of their compensation, but also just in terms of conceptualizing women athletes, their value, their talent, their labor. Revenue sharing effectively says that women athletes have a right to the profit that they help to create. I mean, that is, has historically been unheard of in these league CBAs. It's always been defined in really narrow ways, and it's really not given women athletes the financial freedom or like the right to profit in this way. And I just think that is, that's huge. Just like I said, conceptually, to understand women athletes as having a right to profit that they are helping to create.
And Risa, how do TV deals and streaming factor into revenue sharing? Is viewership expected to go up because of this new deal?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's both and, right? So media rights deals, they're an input to the league. When the league gets billions of dollars from media companies, that's revenue that they now have to share with players. And so that really helps set the stage for players to negotiate for the deal that they've negotiated for and to reap the benefits of those deals. And then right now that media companies are spending so much money, they're going to up the ante in terms of how they advertise and in terms of how they seek to grow viewership because they want to recoup all of that money they've just invested and some, right? That's kind of the deal that media companies are making. They're betting, hey, we're going to buy this much and we think we're going to bring in even more, which means now kind of their job is to go bring in even more, which means that they need to, increase the production value, increase the number of games, increase the way that they're serving their advertisers to bring that in. And so that's only good news for everyone, for the league, for the players, for the media, for the fans. It really creates a very win-win-win-win-win situation across the board.
And being popular, of course, is important, but having athletes that are influencer too obviously helps the players' bargaining position. How much of that did the players use in order to kind of bargain for themselves?
Players have really come to understand their worth and their value. And the athletes are at the core of the league. They're at the core of women's sports. They're why we follow and why we, love being fans because we know their stories and we feel connected to them. Or maybe, right, we actually have rivalries against them, but we're still invested in it, right? Even if we're kind of rooting against someone, we're still invested in them. And so the rise of this athlete notoriety has really transformed the WNBA in a pretty significant way. We have always had incredible players in the league. It's not that these players are, necessarily better than they used to be. It's that there's a whole ecosystem that has evolved in time and gotten more sophisticated and allowed fans to get more and more invested in these players' lives, in their stories, in their performances, and in the stakes. And so it really is all about the players and the fandom that they drive.
So in terms of player salaries, we talked about it just a little bit. The WNBA is seeing a massive increase. How does this compare to previous deals and to other professional leagues in the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, it's stratospheric. This deal, right, like the revenue sharing component alone sets it at about 20% goes to the players of gross revenue, which is, much more than the 7 to 9% they'd been seeing. But across women's sports, I mean, this is going to serve as a model for other leagues in the U.S. and I would venture to say globally too. And that's just been the case historically. Players, women's athletes pass down that knowledge, their expertise, their negotiating tactics. Billie Jean King and the original 9 in tennis in 1970 have been sharing their wisdom with women's soccer in the 90s, U.S. women's hockey in the 2017 strike. The 2020 WNBA CBA benefited from all of that knowledge. The 2023 PWHL, the Professional Women's Hockey League CBA, the 2024 NWSL CBA. I mean, all of these athletes are working together in their own lane, but supporting each other across these leagues to negotiate for great deals.
Now, Risa, according to ESPN, for 2026, the rookie salary scale starts at $500,000 for the number one overall pick, then steps down to about $467,000, and it goes on from there. So I do want to bring in a specific example. Caitlin Clark, one of the top players, she earned $78,000 in 2025, and it's projected that by 2026 she'll be bringing in about $500,000. How meaningful is this for players entering the league, especially when we talk about college players and even high school players?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal, right? First of all, the fact that the players were able to negotiate that rookie salaries will scale. So whether it's Caitlin Clark or Paige Beckers or whether it is Kiki Iriafen, right, or Dominique Malongo, right, the players who are still operating under their rookie contract, which in the WNBA players operate under for 3 to 4 years. So players that signed those deals in the last few years, right, they're not left out from reaping the benefits of this salary growth. And that's huge. And that's not a given. And so the fact that all of these rookie players, their contracts are basically going to convert to this new scale is really, really significant. And I think it's important, certainly for girls across the country, women across the country, it creates real financial empowerment for women athletes. And it catalyzes some important conversations writ large around pay equity and, not just pay equity, but maternity leave and fertility benefits and mental health benefits. And all of the things that this CBA have won for players are things that across the country, right, people are talking about in their own workplaces, and particularly women, right, are looking for from their workplaces. And so this sets in motion what's possible when women, command their value and their worth.
We've had a few conversations organically happen here at the station as well. So you're right. It is something that is shifting a few perspectives and minds right now. Now, sticking to salaries, veteran player Erica Whaler's salary is projected to jump from nearly $80,000 a season to almost $500,000. She's been in the league for 10 years. What does this kind of salary growth mean for the veterans who've been underpaid for years? And just like you noted, for the players who helped build the 30-year institution that is the WNBA?
Yeah, I mean, it's life-changing. Players have gone on social and said, like, hey, I'm going to be the first $1 million, millionaire in my family. That is generational wealth that matters in this country. And it is going to women, and it is going often to Black women and to Black queer women. And it's, celebrating all of their accomplishments. And it's really, putting a flag in the ground. They're like, these are the best women's basketball players on the planet, and we want them to stay in the WNBA, and we're going to treat them like they are the best, right? And we're going to invest in their salaries, but we're also going to invest in the training and in their physicians and in their massage therapists and their nutritionists and in their charter travel and treating them like the professionals that they are. It is life-changing for the folks who are in the WNBA today. It is so meaningful and powerful that today's athletes wanted to make sure that players from the last 30 years are included in this win too, because this win doesn't exist without players who invested so much sweat equity in getting to this moment. And they're going to get a check. So it's not just sweat equity anymore, right? Or they're going to be able to trade in that sweat equity for a check in their bank accounts.
Amazing. This is the Metro. I'm Tia Graham. We're talking about the WNBA's historic new contract. Our guest is Director of Research and Insight at Parity, Risa Assard. We're opening the phone lines as well and asking you, who are your favorite women athletes or teams of all time? And what does it mean to see an increase in viewership for women's professional sports? The number is 313-577-1019. Now, we're going to go to the phone lines now. We have Josh in Baltimore. Josh, number one, thank you so much for calling in today.
Absolutely, Tia.
And who is your favorite women athlete?
It'd definitely be Margot Hayes, the female climber to ascend 515 back about 10 years ago now. It's always been an inspiration to see women at the forefront of climbing.
Yeah. And honestly, you know, one of the questions you have is like, where are you able to watch some of these competitions? Where did you see it?
Well, a lot of climbing isn't really competitive. It's about setting up and doing the route and then pushing yourself as hard as you can.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is published on YouTube and on Instagram and social media. And that viewership leads to sponsorship availabilities from companies that want to be present in those climbers' social media and publications.
And, you know, it's so interesting because rock climbers don't make a lot of money either. They're kind of famous for being these really, really risk seekers, but also doing something that's very, very, you know, graceful.
Absolutely, right. And the opportunity to watch them in more public spaces, like at the Olympics, for instance, has been a great advantage over the past couple of years as rock climbing has come more into the public light.
Josh, I will say this, during the Olympic Games, watching the women rock climb, I don't think I've seen anything more fascinating in my life. How are they getting up the wall that fast? I don't know.
It is intense. It is absolutely every muscle in your body and then every fiber of your will pushing yourself up that wall. And really, it's incredible to see women and men competing on the exact same stage, especially in places like El Capitan or modern American climbing sites around the world.
I love it. Josh, thank you so much for calling in. Josh is a rock climbing fan. What about you? Who's your favorite female athletes, women teams? No matter what it is, give us a call, 313-577-1019. Now, Risa, bringing you back into the conversation, I want to talk about some of those other wins that we saw within the contract. We briefly touched on just a few of those, but beyond the salaries, what stands out to you in terms of quality of life improvements for players?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's everything from those league-wide charters, which we know reduce the wear and tear on athletes' bodies through better travel schedules, more comfortable seating, to, you know, additional access to physicians, athletic trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, physical and massage therapists, nutritionists, mental health coverage, better coverage for maternity leave and for players who are on the pathway to being a parent, but they're not yet, right? All of these are investments that the league is making in players to say, we want you in the WNBA. We want you to be at your very best. We are investing in you. We are investing in the product. And we're investing in you as whole people, right? You are incredible athletes, and we want you to be at the top of your game. We know that you're whole people too, and we want you to be able to experience kind of that top line across your whole life and your wellness there.
Excuse me. And Risa, you know, what we've been able to gather, you know, we've seen so many gains, so much progress has been made, but where did the players have to compromise and where are improvements still needed?
I mean, the players were definitely initially asking for a bit more than 20% in the gross revenue share. The NBA, CBA has that number up much higher than 20%. And so, you know, I think sometimes people wonder, are WNBA players asking for the exact same dollars and cents that NBA players are? And the reality is no, right? They're not asking for the same dollars and cents. They've historically been asking for the same percentage of share, right? So if they get X percent, we should get X percent. So 20% is huge relative to what they were making. It's still right, a bit of a difference to the men. And so they were looking for something a little bit closer to that in this. But make no mistake, this is a huge win, and the players have certainly, expressed a lot of enthusiasm and celebration for this historic moment. And so that was certainly one of, the areas where there were some, concessions made, but in the interest of getting a great deal done in many, many respects.
So right now, are we entering a phase where women's sports are being valued more on performance metrics rather than comparisons to men's leagues overall?
I think women's sports are being valued for what they are.
Okay.
They're being valued for being incredible sports, incredible competitors, incredible entertainment, incredible personalities, incredible, just like key cultural icons and, what communities can rally around. And I think that's really, really exciting.
And if you, Risa, were given insight to league organizers or even policymakers, what steps would you suggest to build on the momentum created by this historic CBA?
Yeah, I just think it's going to take time for us to see all of these benefits come to fruition. It is so exciting that there are additional teams coming in, including Detroit in the next few years, Philly, Cleveland, the 2 new teams this year. And so, I think continuing to invest in players, invest in great brand deals and relationships with sponsors, and making sure that benefits teams and the league and the players, right? Making that kind of entire ecosystem work really well together, and seeing such success over the coming years with this expansion. Just the future of the WNBA is so, so bright.
Risa Assard is the Director of Research and Insight at Parity. It's a marketing and sponsorship platform aimed at supporting women in sports. Risa, as always, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
It's been a pleasure.
Coming up, a bar dedicated to showing women's sports. We'll learn more about it. That's next on the Metro. We'll be right back.